Tigergruber, moving out. We can do this.
Listen up, men!
Check fire! I see him! Save me!
You shouldn't get too engaged!
Infantry section!
Reinforcements! Move!
Weapons free! Jawohl! Jawohl! Tigergruber moving!
Dress off for march. We can do this. Also again. On me. We're moving. Marching order. Spread out. Move.
Listen up, men!
Rapid raid on Tommy! Hit the infantry section! Just fire! Adjust fire! New target!
Destroy!
Move, Tigergruppe!
Look out! Kill those fucking monkeys! Keep!
Listen up, men!
Get them!
Standing by!
Moving the Tigergruppe out. Ausrücken, Tigergruppe! Achtung, men! Keep organized. Tigergruppe, move orders. Achtung, crew! Schnell!
Awaiting new orders, Hauptmann!
Achtung, men! Keep organized. Move! Tigergruppe, at ready. Dress off for march! Dress off for march!
Form up!
You want to play soldier? He needs to get back in the
Jawohl!
tank!
Listen up, men! Jawohl! Tigergruber moving!
Schnell,
Hier!
follow me!
Hit Moskett!
Yes, Hauptmann, Sir!
Let's go!
Auftragseingang.
Mach schon! Right. Avoiding detection. Dress off for march. Panzerfaust. On my mark.
Rapid right on Tommy!
Find cover, fire on that sniper, get his head down! Listen up, men!
Move from cover to cover. Keep your eyes open and move.
Tigergruppe! Panzerfaust!
Keep your eyes open and move. Ausrücken.
Here! Tommy destroyed!
Fall in.
Tigergruppe, move out. Watch for Tommy. Ausrücken, Tigergruppe. Schnell, ausrücken.
You want to black soldier? We need to get back in attack! Get the infantry section! Medic!
Marching order. Spread out. Schnell, follow me. Beeil dich, Bernd. Dress off for march.
The British here are digging in. We need to soften the fools before they get settled. Help Mongols and Freshmen to call in artillery!
Maintain fire! Deploy inside!
Freshmen destroyed! Mark another one for Germany!
Move! 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 Now is the time! Move! Moving under contact!
Schnell, ausrücken.
Target 2 down,
Move
sir!
as ordered!
Tigergruppe, move out. Marching order. Spread out. Panzerfaust, on my mark.
Allied tank gun eliminated! Target, Satchel, mark!
Panzer direkt order, Lietzke.
Moving under contact! Mark schnell! Move!
Marching order. Spread out. Bernd, get down.
Tiger Grouper, move orders. Mark that grid point. Panzerfaust, schnell! Orders! Move, Tigergruppe! Move from cover to cover! Hit the infantry section! Jawohl! Tigergruppe moving! Fast right on Tommy! Holding for orders! New target, empty! Jawohl! Take targets of opportunity! Mark that grid point. Schnell! Time to move out! Bert, get down! Down! Out of sight! On me! Cease fire! Watch for Tommy!
Cowards attack our forward base.
Stellung! Open fire! Tigergruppe! Sturm!
Target 3 down, Hauptmann!
Halt! Waiting for orders!
Move, meine Tigergruppe! together! Schnell! Time to move out! Tiger Grouper, move out!
Fall
Beeil
in.
dich, Bernd! Dress off for march. Holding for orders.
Patience, Tigergruppe. We're almost there.
Cease fire! Jawohl! Tigergruppe moving! Hit the infantry section! Right contact! Right contact!
Bloody hell, those guys stink. Move! Beeil dich, Bernd! On me! They're moving! Holding for orders. Time to take down Tommy!
Jawohl!
Listen up, men! Listen up, men! Listen up, men!
Take targets of opportunity! Jawohl! Move as ordered!
Listen up, men!
Fire! Adjust fire! Fire at will! Moving under contact! Move as ordered! Now is the time! Move! Tigergruppe! Panzerfaust! Tigergruppe in combat!
Listen up, men!
New target! Jawohl! Tigergruppe moving! Adjust fire! Adjust fire! Mach schnell! Move!
Down, sir!
Fire on that building! Yes, let them have it! Bernd, get down!
Listen up, men!
Send orders, Hauptmann!
Listen up,
Just
men!
fire on the new position! Awaiting new orders, Hauptmann! Tommy, just like we left the tank!
Komm zurück, Move, meine Tigergruppe! Jetzt sagt direct order, Lietzke! That's off for march! Tigergruppe moving out!
Form up!
Keep your eyes on the move!
Target abgeschossen!
Schnell, follow me!
Taking Piet fire!
Move! Just get back to Division HQ.
Tigergruppe at ready! Ready for mission orders!
Right there! He's right there! Get him!
Jawohl! All teams! New target! MG!
Listen up, men!
Jesus Christ, they got a corporal!
Listen up, men!
Yes, Hauptmannforce! Go ahead! Mission orders, Tigergruppe! Tigergruppe, move orders!
Listen up, men!
Scheiße! Doctor, exit! What do we do?
Don't talk, find another route!
Schnell, komm zurück!
Moving under contact! Combat mission acknowledged! Holding for orders! Will! Mission orders, Tigergruppe.
Move, Tigergruppe! Schnell!
Achtung! Schnell! Move as ordered! Yes, Hauptenfort! Panzerfaust! Schnell!
Infantry trying to push through!
Target 2 down, sir!
Ausrücken!
Tigergruppe, back to HQ! Update division on our status.
Tommy put up a good fight, but the German people thought our tanks were unstoppable. We had to return to Villers-Bocage to show them that they were.
Achtung, Tigergruppe, gather your courage! Ja, mein Kommandant! Prepare for contact! Panzer confirmed. This is Panzergruppe 501, taking your lead. Achtung! That's the remaining forces, schnell! Pride of the fatherland! Heavy Panzer ready. Action station contact! Repeat last, watch for infantry! Round up! Requesting target, Hauptmann! Fire at will, Joseph. Ready yourselves, Tigergruppe! Panzermotor to 450 PS.
Since our escape, the 7th Armored Division has dug in around Villers-Bocage. We need to clear the roads for Panzergrenadier support. Destroy all British defensive emplacements along these routes. Once that is accomplished, assault the town and have the Grenadiers lock down these strategic sectors. Let's show Tommy our fatherland's resolve, the Tiger's strength.
Hauptmann Frost, sir, do we have no orders? Keep pushing! The British will regroup, schnell! Loaded! Panzer on the line! Down! Down! stop the assault. All targets are cleared. Where are we going to put all the medals? Moving out. No, time to move. Now we make sure the town is in German hands, Tigergruppe. Escort the Panzer Grenadiers into the village to secure it. Watch it! No, move into range! Demolish them! Kill target, heavy panzer ready! Prepare for move! Moving. All power to engine! Scanning for targets, Foster. Tigergruppe ready! Heavy panzer. Lend me your ears. Panzer. Message received. Stop, Tigergruppe! All power to engine! Motor to 450 PS. If it moves, eliminate it. Panzer motor to 600 PS. And attention! Eliminate the British defenses. Open the roads for the Panzer Grenadiers. Schnell! Just fire! Enemy VC knocked out! We have gas! MG emplacement neutralized. Panzer Grenadiers have received orders and are en route. The British defensive perimeter is destroyed. HQ, this is Panzergruppe Leer requesting additional Grenadier support. All roads are clear. I say again, all roads are clear. HQ has allocated third company for support. Heavy Panzer rolling in. Additional reinforcements have been dispatched. All out to move! Panzer, stand by for target. Let's go out! Target sighted, engage! Action, we have target! Ready yourselves! Keep it moving! Motor! Move out! Motor, move out! Stand on the gun! Move! Bury them alive! High explosive rounds are on target! Sector has been captured and is secure. Engine, move out! Arno, keep on those repairs. Move out! Gun, free! Panzer, engage! Target confirmed. Access stations! Keep moving! Ausrücken! Go! Grenadiers report MG contact. Support request. Move! Ausrücken! Move this thing! Keep it out here! Tigergruppe ready! Order to 400 PS! Yabos on approach! Verdammt nochmal! Bert, Radio HQ! Request anti-aircraft support! HQ, this is Leia. British aircraft on approach. Send reinforcements. AA support has been dispatched, sir. Sector of Vilabocage is secure. Ready for orders. Fire! Get us moving! Coming in! Check the hydraulics. Oh no, move out! I did what I can. Move on the fire! Our engine! Heroes incoming! Hello, move into range! Grenadiers reports that the ammo dump is secure. Firefly! Ready to load AP! Move! Move! Go! Right gun! Power motor! Drive! Keep your eyes open! Move out! Keep moving! Let's go! Let's go! Right. Move out! Reinforcements on out. Counterattack! Cover your flags! Incoming Panzer! Weapons free! Protect the infantry! Ready to aircraft! Yarmouth inbound! Reporting that the sector of town is secure. We're done. Mount, report Villas Bocage secure. It's the Fatherlands now. I say again, Villa Bocage is now secure.
That was the last time I saw the interior of a Tiger tank. The last time I saw Schultz. He went on to command the 502 Tigergruppe. On August 9th, 1944, he held the advancing Americans at Autry long enough to allow our division to escape Normandy. He died in his Tiger. By September, what was left of our division redeployed to Holland. I assumed command of the Panzerlehr Division as Major General. It had seemed so clear, so necessary. But in the end, senior command had lost its way, and unfortunately the Fatherland followed.
When you face death, the voices of doubt just disappear. Parents, wives, children, fallen comrades. They all vanish. And all that is left is clarity.
about.
Operative. You picked that.
The Crimson Raiders! What's your name?
Surely you know who I am. The Tiger of Partali? Crime fighter? Warrior for peace?
Hey,
It's Amara.
hi. Thanks. I'll pre-order your tombstone just in case. Now, those jerks who tried to murder you are the Children of the Vault, a bandit cult who follow their creepy leaders with blind devotion. Which reminds me, if you're going to obey my every beck and call, you'll need an echo device. Hi.
This visual design has received also seen. Borderlands 3 takes this a step further though, and not only includes some similar design locations in Pandora, but also allows players to travel to other planets, each with their own unique visual style. Scrapyard were composed mostly of various 2D textured mounds of scrap, as opposed to the actual scrap like in Borderlands 3. Environments are also more dynamic now, with debris like tires now rolling around during
As with previous Borderlands titles on PC, it'll help you get closer to your desired frame rate. Unlike the previous titles,
Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed, another week, another game release as we head into the big holiday game season. Today we're looking at Borderlands 3, the hotly anticipated title from Gearbox Software that finally gives us more awesome, fun, first-person shooting action. In fact, it's kind of hard to believe that Borderlands 2 came out all the way back in, I think it was 2012, so fans have definitely been waiting a while for this one. The game is built using Unreal Engine 4 and has both a DirectX 11 and DirectX 12 mode, although DX12 is labeled as a beta at this stage. It's also quite a performance-intensive title, requiring an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080 Ti to get even close to 60 FPS gameplay at 4K using ultra settings. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Borderlands art style, and I think Borderlands 3 looks pretty great, but I also don't think its visual quality justifies such taxing performance. Whether this means the game is poorly optimized or just has some really intensive visual effects, well, we'll find out in today's video. Of course, in this video we'll be going through and benchmarking every single graphics quality setting in the game to show you both the visual and performance differences. The idea here is to recommend the best balance between graphics quality and frame rate, and at the end we go through some of our recommended quality options for the game. Our visual comparisons come from captures taken at 4K using a GeForce RTX 2080 Super, and to spot some of the fine detail differences, we recommend either watching this video at 4K on YouTube or downloading the source quality file from our Patreon page. For performance, all data was captured on our Core i9 9900K test rig with 16GB of DDR4 memory and a variety of GPUs from both Nvidia and AMD, both high-end and entry-level. The idea here is to give you guys a general indicator of how the game performs across different quality settings. It's not a benchmark of a specific configuration. It's how the majority of gamers will be playing, especially with popular mid-range combinations like a GTX 1660 paired with a Ryzen 5 2600. It's also important to note that our performance data comes from the in-game benchmark run, which runs for 100 seconds or so. The visual comparisons you see won't always be from the benchmark, but the benchmark itself is a great indicator of how the game will perform in general. Spot checks can be useful, but I don't think they are as representative of the overall game A1 version, so play the game in the DirectX 11 or DirectX 12 modes. We found that for both AMD and Nvidia gamers, the best choice right now is DirectX 11. On Nvidia GPUs, the game runs slightly slower on average in DX12 and significantly slower in terms of 1% lows, which often presents itself as in-game stuttering. We also found the same stuttering issues on AMD cards, but this would be paired with a higher average frame rate than the DX11 mode. Even though average FPS is high in DX12 on AMD cards, the stuttering is pretty annoying, so we'd stick to DX11 until that gets patched. Aside from that, we have a wealth of graphics options in the game. There are 6 presets ranging from badass to very low, and this then breaks down into 16 other graphics options, each with several modes. Certainly there is a lot of scope here for getting things running smoothly on a variety of hardware, which is what we like to see. For now, let's dive into the presets. For the most part, you won't spot significant differences between the badass and ultra presets. That's because the only 2 settings that differ here are volumetric fog and screen space reflections. Everything else is identical, so only in areas with fog and reflections will we see changes. In this opening area of the benchmark, for example, these effects don't come into play, so we're seeing the same visuals. Stepping down to highs where we start to see the first visual downgrades. Ambient occlusion and shadowing is cut back, so across the foliage and branches in this scene we're getting less shadowing, especially for distant objects. Shadow sharpness is lower and draw distances are cut back too. You might also spot better draw distances for objects, grass and so on with the ultra setting. The major change is the lack of motion blur for the high preset, whereas ultra has both camera and object motion blur. Medium is a big step down for visuals over high. The overall image is softer, that's thanks to swapping out temporal anti-aliasing for FXAA. Has both camera and setting. The major change is the lack of motion blur for the high preset, whereas Ultra has both camera and object motion blur. Medium is a big step down for visuals over high. The overall image is softer, that's thanks to swapping out temporal anti-aliasing for FXAA and the removal of fidelity FX sharpening. Draw distances are pared back further, foliage detail is reduced, shadow density is reduced. A lot of these draw distance related changes happen relatively close to the camera, which can be a bit noticeable. With that said, I saw no real change to textures. That's because texture streaming and material complexity remain on high. The big change swapping down to low is the complete removal of volumetric fog, which provides a lot of atmosphere to areas of the game. Some people may prefer the presentation of no fog, we'll look at that more later, but that is the big change. On top of this, further reductions to draw detail, textures and object quality. Very low really cranks things back with significant drops in shadows and other areas. Looking at performance gives you a good idea of where things stand here. The top 3 presets are relatively similar in terms of performance. Badass is 10% slower than Ultra, while High is 10% faster. The jump up to Badass here definitely isn't worth it, given for the most part you won't notice visual differences, while High is a good choice if you're willing to drop draw distances a bit, although you aren't going to gain much performance. The big improvement comes from Medium. Despite the preset's name, which might be off-putting to some PC gamers who love their Ultra settings, I think the visual downgrades are pretty reasonable, given you will get 70% higher frame rates. Yeah, shadows and draw distances drop a bit, but if you want a quick and easy change to get lots of extra performance, I think Medium is a great balance. I wouldn't move things much further down though. Low is faster again than Medium, but in dropping volumetric fog and bringing down draw distances to a really close level, I feel if you can spare the performance, you'll be better off on Medium. Very low is of course for low-end gamers, and it's good to see you can get close to 3 times the performance of the Badass preset, which shows there's lots of room here to get a playable experience on entry-level hardware. Let's move now into the individual quality settings, starting with anti-aliasing. 3 options here covering standard post-processing versions of AA. We have no AA, FXAA and temporal AA. No anti-aliasing obviously has the standard flaws we see with this sort of setting, like shimmering, jagged edges and so on, although it is nice and sharp. FXAA takes away some of that sharpness and smooths out jaggies, but shimmering is still a big issue in motion. Temporal anti-aliasing is even softer than FXAA, but suffers from no shimmering in motion and still looks reasonably clean, especially with fidelity FX sharpening enabled. It does occasionally produce temporal artifacts like trailing on moving objects, but overall I think it's the go-to choice. It's also the artifacts like trailing on moving objects, but overall I think it's the go-to choice. It's also the best choice from a performance standpoint than FXAA, but suffers from no shimmering in motion and still looks reasonably clean, especially with fidelity FX sharpening enabled. It does occasionally produce temporal artifacts like trailing on moving objects, but overall I think it's the go-to choice. It's also the best choice from a performance standpoint. I think the visual improvement over FXAA is worth a small reduction in performance. Switching AA off entirely can gain up to 3%, but not something I'd recommend for most people. Speaking of fidelity, can gain up to 3%, but not something I'd recommend for most people. Speaking of fidelity FX sharpening, here we have a look at how the contrast adaptive sharpening algorithm works in this game to enhance detail. It's a subtle effect, more subtle than AMD's standard Radeon image sharpening enhanced detail. It's a subtle effect, more subtle than AMD's standard Radeon image sharpening implementation, but I think it works really well. Especially with temporal anti-aliasing, the technique just cuts out a bit of softness, and this brings out some fine detail when you use the sharpening filter, but it isn't overly sharp. Given that even on Nvidia cards this effect has less than a 1% performance hit, I'd leave it enabled. Motion blur is next up, and this is split into 2 separate controls. We have camera blur and object blur. However, if you want to use camera motion blur, you'll also have to have object blur enabled. Camera blur applies motion blur to the entire scene when you move the camera, while object blur only blurs objects that themselves are in motion, like this flying thing at the end of the benchmark run. And of course you can disable motion blur as well. There's a pretty simple cadence to performance here. You gain about 1% switching camera blur off and then 3% overall with no motion blur. Lots of people hate motion blur, so this is an obvious setting to turn off to Texture streaming is a setting that has an impact on texture clarity in some situations. It doesn't seem to affect all textures, but certainly there are some notable areas where you can spot lower resolution textures, especially if you switch this setting to medium or low. This is one of the few settings that you should only mess around with on low-end hardware. If you have enough VRAM, say 4 GB or more, and a decent CPU, you should leave this all the way up on Ultra. Anisotropic filtering is a standard feature in games that controls the clarity of textures at oblique angles. The higher the setting, the clearer the textures, especially when you get to 4 times or above. Given that again on modest hardware, time setting. Material complexity is one of those settings I spent ages poring over the footage to spot the changes. One is obvious: if you put this setting to low, the quality of rocks and similar surfaces throughout the game is reduced. It's not an option I'd recommend, even medium looks a lot better. But comparing medium through to high, the only difference I could spot was an improvement to the smoke quality coming off fires, as well as smoke draw distances. Ultra has the densest and best looking smoke, and that falls away with each option. To be honest though, the medium setting still looks pretty good, and if you look at the performance data, you can improve your frame rate by 5% or so switching from Ultra to medium. I wouldn't use low, which is another improvement, but seriously, I had a hard time distinguishing between ultra, high, and medium, so for the most part, medium seems like an obvious choice for this setting. Shadows is a straightforward setting. Turning this setting down affects the amount of shadowing, the draw distance for shadows, and the quality of the shadows. Low has very basic low quality shadows, but hey, unlike some games, you do actually get shadows here. Medium is a great option for entry-level gamers. You get many more shadows than low, and an improvement to shadow resolution. High seems to introduce some form of contact shadows for objects, while Ultra takes things further with the sharpest shadows and what appears to be some distance-based shadowing in some areas. Given these changes, the performance differences may not be as large as you think. Most gamers should stick to Ultra here, given moving to medium or low will only give you an extra 2 to 3% onto your frame rate. However, as I mentioned, medium is a good setting to use for those with lower end hardware. Draw distance is something most PC gamers will be familiar with. The higher the setting, the further out objects will be drawn, including grass and other minor details in the scene. It doesn't seem to affect most of the big structures that you see in the distance in a significant way. There's not much difference between Ultra and high in terms of detail, a small reduction. Moving to medium is where I saw the biggest change, and it's quite obvious that things are being removed from the scene and streamed in closer to the camera. Low takes this a step further. While there are differences between the modes, Borderlands 3 has a great method of introducing distant objects at the draw distance limit. Grass, for example, doesn't just pop in, it appears to grow, and this helps hide a lot of the transitions in a fantastic way. For this reason, when looking at the performance data, I'd recommend for most people stepping down from Ultra to high. Most of the time you won't notice a slight difference. Then for mid-range gamers, again medium is a good choice given you'll get a 5% performance increase. Environment detail seems to affect the geometric detail of most objects in the field of view, especially at far distances. Although to be honest, I could only spot significant changes when moving down to the low setting. The differences between ultra, high, and medium are pretty minimal at best, and this makes sense when you look at performance. No difference until you step down to significant changes when moving down to the low setting. The differences between ultra, high, and medium are pretty minimal at best, and this makes sense when you The differences between ultra, high, and medium are pretty minimal at best, and this makes sense when you look at performance. No difference until you step down to low, where you gain 6%. For most gamers, I'd recommend the ultra setting here, as low is a significant downgrade. I couldn't spot much of a difference between I'd recommend the ultra setting here, as low is a significant downgrade. I couldn't spot much of a difference between the terrain detail settings, and I didn't spot a difference in performance either. This is another one to keep on ultra. Foliage is an interesting setting in the way Gearbox has approached the different modes. Basically, this controls the quality of the foliage, the density, and the distance at which foliage gets rendered. I couldn't spot much of a difference between the high and ultra modes, but when you step down to medium, there are definitely a few changes. The grass gets less dense, and some small plants and shrubs get removed. Trees are generally unaffected, it's more the ground level stuff that gets removed to improve performance. Low, of course, takes things a step further than medium and removes more stuff. But the way they are removing some of the elements is really interesting. For example, they don't remove all the grass switching from ultra to medium. It's only a little patch here and there. It does reduce density, which helps performance as all grass is animated in this game, but having a few patches go missing is hard to notice unless you know what you are looking for. The performance difference is pretty large for this setting as well. I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I do think the game world looks best on Ultra, but a 5% performance improvement moving to medium is a tasty proposition. Low is a slight performance gain again. I tend towards sticking with Ultra, but if you've tweaked everything else and still want a few extra frames, consider switching this setting down to medium. I spotted no difference in performance changing the character detail setting, so yeah, keep this on Ultra. Ambient occlusion has an interesting implementation in Borderlands 3. While there are 4 different modes plus an option to disable ambient occlusion entirely, there aren't many visual differences between Ultra and Low, maybe a slight change to shading intensity. The real change occurs when you turn ambient occlusion off, where a lot of self-shadowing and depth is removed from the scene. This plays out in a similar way when looking at performance. No significant difference between Ultra and Low, so you may as well keep it on Ultra. Lower end gamers might consider switching AO off for a 5% performance advantage. Volumetric fog is the most performance intensive setting in Borderlands 3. This setting just continually seems to one that pops up in games to murder your frame rate, and why developers include such frame-chugging ultra versions of volumetric fog, I'll never know. Maybe they want to see GPUs cry, or just ensure their game is one that's used for benchmarking. In any case, I can't tell much of a performance difference visually between Ultra and Medium. There's fog, it looks pretty decent on Medium, maybe very slightly better on Ultra, but not by much. Off, naturally, disables fog, which makes the game look very different in some sections. I think having fog in these areas is a creative choice, so to me, I would keep it enabled. Performance-wise, yeah, you want to keep volumetric fog on medium. You'll gain a 22% performance advantage over the high mode, which is enabled in the Ultra preset. If you're coming from Ultra fog, you'll see more like a 35% gain for basically no change to visuals, so yeah, that's pretty massive. The final setting in the game is screen space reflections. I thought this would have a big impact on water reflections, but it turns out the differences are quite minor, even between SSR on Ultra and off. Medium here seems a good compromise to me, given that you'll gain around 5% over Ultra or High, and that's in the benchmark run where I struggled to spot any mind-blowing differences. Alright, so that's all the quality settings looked at, and to be honest, there is massive
Welcome back, Arms Race viewers, to what is sure to be a very violent experience. Our show is about to start just as soon as the Vault Hunter team leaves the starting room. Lock, load, and loot. It's time for an arms race.
Ready, beast? Let us hunt and kill. Ooh. Glorious quarry.
Now, Sal, you've had some experience in similar competitions. What can you tell us about that?
Well, obviously, the big one is bi-weekly beatdown. It's got the biggest viewership, but it changes so frequently, it's hard to stay on top. It's dangerous, too. One time, the entire match fell into a black hole.
Any chance of that here?
There's always a chance of falling into a black hole, Axe. The nothingness of death could find us all at any moment without warning. Nowhere is truly safe in this bastard of a universe.
Delightful. Thanks, Sal.
Kane, I would never start with you. But this one has done just that.
For the offering box! Whoa! That mother gate is closing in!
Need some cover! You should run!
Guns! What more could you want? The murder game! Stop shrinking! Ha ha! Classic blood sport! Check back later for more fantastic deals. Any item, anywhere. Sell to me, and I'll find a buyer. Now go kill the other guys. Another beautiful day in the military-industrial complex. Your business is always appreciated.
New faces for the whole family!
Death welcomes. The so-called murder cane draws near. What else can I fit in my pockets?
By that unfeeling force of nature known as the murder cane.
I'm gonna put you down, bitch!
What should I send back? That should keep my pet from chewing on it for now. Glad to have you back. Distract them!
There used to be so many of us on Pandora. Now it's like we're spilled across the stars.
So Mercenary Day will be here before you know it. Thought about what you're gonna give me?
I wonder where the vault map is right now.
So how is Promethea?
A jungle of concrete and neon. Atlas is on its last gasp.
We'll help Reese when we can. Right now, we've got to get to Athenas. I've got a friend there. See what she knows. Claptrap, tight broadcast to Athenas. Call sign Sapphire.
And comms open!
Lilith! What are you... Oh, damn it!
Bad time?
Yeah, kinda. I'm guessing you're calling for the same reason Maliwan's trashing our monastery? Well, I don't have it, but I know where it is. Hey, get here sooner, you'll miss all the fun. And by fun, I mean getting bulldozed by corporate murderers.
I wonder.
We can hold her own until we get there. She's a siren and as badass as they come. Hell, maybe we can convince her to join us.
It would be helpful to have another siren on board. Besides you, Lilith. I was still counting you.
Oh, more ladies on Admiral Claptrap's love ship. Everyone's looking at Claptrap. Booyah!
Set a course for Athenas, Vault Hunter. relentless.
Drop pod's ready when you are, VH. I heard you won us some allies while on Prometheus. Some people are like that, attracting friends and allies and well-wishers wherever they go. But I am not one of those types. And never will be.
Don't shoot!